Rolling.
What's up, motherfuckers? This is your host, Sweet Tea, here with another episode of the Catch the Sky podcast. You can find us on Twitter at CTS Terry or by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast on Facebook or Instagram. As always, I'm here with Saif, and we have our special guest back with us again, Dick Francisco. Welcome back to the show.
Hola.
We're talking patriarchy this week on the Catch the Sky podcast. And what better person to bring into the studio than Dick Francisco, the star of episode 20, Endometriosis, still available on all platforms. Dick, how's your uterus?
Still there. Still over baking anything that finds its way into my uterus. And nothing like bringing in Dick to talk about the patriarchy. So thank you for inviting me.
We need Dick to assess Dick. The more Dick involved, the better.
How many more Dick jokes
quite
are we going to
frankly.
do tonight, right? Let's get ready, everybody, for plenty more Dick jokes.
I think it's important to define the patriarchy first.
Well, should I ask the patriarchy then? How do you define yourself?
I've
Dicks.
never saw myself as culpable in this or complicit, but apparently I am because I'm a man.
Yeah, you have a dick.
But I was a member of Amnesty International, and I wore a shirt that said women's rights are human rights. So I vote for women. I voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Therefore, I identify as a feminist. Therefore, I'm not part of the problem.
Noted. So, yeah, I just didn't know if you wanted to keep digging that hole. I was going to let you dig it as far as you wanted to, so I could then come in as the nurturing female and rescue you men from your deep hole.
I didn't say anything. That's why I was gonna say I didn't say a damn thing. I just took the route of shutting the fuck up.
That was very feminist of me to loop you both into that, so my apologies, sweet tea, to immediately just typecast you both because you have dicks.
I know I'm part of the problem, but I was just gonna let him rant as long as he wanted, so that all the spotlight would be focused on him.
It's kind of like I'm not racist because I have a black neighbor, right? And so
Jesus Christ.
So I voted for Hillary Clinton.
But wouldn't that suggest that all the dick I take makes me part of the patriarchy too?
It depends on how we define patriarchy.
Indeed it does. Back to the beginning, isn't it?
So the patriarchy is the system that has been created that ultimately does not empower women, does not allow them to be equal in the eyes of the law. They create traditions.
I would say from the female perspective, or even just the human perspective, that it's super important to me to delineate what the patriarchy is as a social construct versus, say, masculinity, right? So masculinity is, I don't think we should look at masculinity, whether that's masculine energy coming from a male or a female. I think it's still important to take that and go, that's reality. That's a necessity, I think, in our society, just like femininity is important. But the patriarchy is a social construct, and that social construct is where, the inequity of power and rights were given to men or taken by men, and then obviously created inequality for women. So that's why I think you'll hear we as females rise up above the patriarchy and say we want equality. What that doesn't mean is we don't want a society where masculine and feminine energy still coexist with each other. And sometimes I think that gets in the way, because I think we immediately go, the patriarchy means we don't want masculine men anymore. And it's like, well, my name's Dick. I'm pretty masculine, bros.
Not all women are the same. Not all women,
Right.
Some women want a traditional role. They value a nurturing, and I do love the nurturing mothers. My mother healed me after my hip surgery, and I loved it. And I appreciated being waited to.
Do you think that's nature versus nurture for her as a female? Just asking.
I just think she wanted to take care of her baby boy.
And but that's what I'm saying. Do you think that's because of the constructs of the patriarchy that she's always been in that role? She's never not known a role of being the caretaker as the female in that domestic situation?
She was, as an immigrant in this country, she put herself in a position to break a lot of those norms. And she came from a very patriarchal culture in the Middle East, right? And so, but I still think she saw herself as progressive, and I believe my father, even though can be very patriarchal, fails to express emotion. Like Mr. Rogers really needs to go talk with my father. Oh shit, he's dead.
So, wait, your father?
No, Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers is dead.
Got it, because I was about to say, whoa, that's breaking news. I mean, my condolences. So I think the point there, though, is you're right. Then your mom must be nurturing by nature, but you suggested that your dad isn't. Do you think your dad isn't nurturing by nature, or do you think
he has his
that
moments.
is because of societal norms that your father doesn't feel like he can be?
And I've really tried to extract this information from my father. This is why I have daddy issues.
Daddy issues, totally.
And why I always seek the arms of younger women. I think that's a big part of that.
Wait, hold on. What do younger women do for you that make up for your daddy issues?
Well, I think that's a notion in the patriarchy, right? That older men get younger women. Like you don't really hear about men dating older women. That's not something. The patriarchy says that's what men should have younger women by their arm. I don't know if it's patriarchy, it's social norms, and
I'm not seeing the connection.
Yeah, I'm not either. Sexual biology would actually suggest you should go for the youngest and most fertile. But I think beyond
aren't there laws against that?
Yeah, I know. That's why there's laws against it. Otherwise,
if we're getting into sexual biology
down
here,
the street,
or sexual psychology, wouldn't older women
well, I think it's
pursue younger
that's
men?
The sexual psychology.
Yeah. I'm into older women. I love it. Give me some MILFs.
But why is it? Because they take care of you, T?
How old, T?
They take care of me in ways that women my age just don't know how to. The question,
I've
Saif?
actually found them to be just awful. They're so demanding. They want so much, these older women. I refuse to date older women now at this point.
What?
They're the worst.
But then you complain that the younger ones can't support you either and pay half their meal.
You got to realize there's an
lazy.
age
Yeah.
gap between you and I. So older for me could be younger for you.
Well, actually, your last encounter with Moab, she was older. Yes.
See? Love it. Late
The
30s.
Equal Rights Amendment.
Mid 30s.
A doctor,
I do think
preferably a
that's
doctor.
ideal age. See, that's the best age in life. You're not too old. You're not too young. I am spot on with you.
I love
in
it.
the mid 30s.
I love it.
It's when the ladies are at their prime.
I know. I've known this for a while.
I have not found this to be true.
We've already broken down some stories in your portfolio, and there's a lot of outliers
I think it's your
there.
approach, Saif. Really, I think it's your approach, man.
Yeah. You're doing something
Maybe I'm
that's
too
just fucking
Maybe
you
I'm
up.
too hypersexual, but it could be that I'm hypersexual. But I thought that was my role.
Or are you just a slut?
Oh, I'm a whore. But
What's the difference? Now, somebody explain the difference to me, because
I don't mind if
I had
women are whores.
I had an ex that fucked my uncle while we were dating. So is this not what I mean, is this hypersexual, or is she just an uncle fucker, or you know, fuck my fucking face?
As a strong supporter of the hypersexual community, I would suggest that an uncle fucker is not a hypersexual. That's just an uncle fucker.
Gotcha. So
what I
this
would
falls
say
under
for
the
the
slut part
yes.
of the Venn diagram.
Certainly. So what I would say about hypersexuals, and I will say this in all honesty, because I do think that there is that stigma that lands on people who would consider themselves or feel hypersexual, is that you are perceived as a slut, a whore, or an uncle fucker. But fucking uncles is way separate than somebody whose sexual energy is always kind of just flowing through them. And there's a lot to be gained and a lot of motivation that doesn't have to result in sex with your uncle that comes from being hypersexual and having sexual energy. It can make you motivated to do all kinds of things that don't actually involve having sex. And so I think it's different people are driven by different energy, and hypersexuals are just very sexual in nature, also very capable of controlling who and what they have sex with.
You started that entire thought with butt and then fucking. So I just thought of butt fucking the entire time.
Again, that's a whole nother sub-faction of this conversation, too.
I got distracted.
Well, so here's what I'll say, though. Generally, back to the patriarchy, right? Men are always given that immediate title of being hypersexual. What do they tell us? You're thinking about sex every 3 seconds. You'll fuck anything that walks.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, right? These are all those statistics they say about you, that you're supposed to, you know, exert your sexual prowess. That's how you get things done in the world. You know, that's where
But there was, you know, there were lines that I couldn't cross, though. As much as I was thinking about sex, I wanted to put a banana in my mouth. Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking that it's that inherent threat, I feel, that leads to the whole patriarchy even being able to exist in the first place. It's that implication that the foundation is built on, that there's nothing that you can do about it even when you try.
I think from the female perspective, of course, that we definitely feel like there's a power struggle that is not in our favor when it comes to speaking out or being able to get help.
I mean, look at Bill Clinton. Everybody still loves him. Creed loves him.
Do we?
Well, Creed loves him.
That was that's like 2010 Creed, 2011 Creed. And we did love Bill Clinton then, right?
Well,
he was that Democrat that
they still marched him out there in 2016. They still marched him out there in 2016.
I think they marched him out there yesterday. He was one of the
he's
electorates.
Marched all over the goddamn place, so they still got a thing for him. Safe.
He's a former president. You have to respect the office, of course. And I think it's also just appropriate just to talk about people. And I think that's part of the reason we're just not having a good enough conversation about assault. It's not thorough. It's no different than any other conversations we're having. They're all very scratch the surface. Let's get to the raw meat of this, the origins of assault. And every case is contextual, whether you're in Missoula, Montana, whether you're at Baylor University, whether you're at Stanford University, whether you're in the boardroom of city government, whether you're Borat bringing Giuliani in to have an awkward encounter, or Jeffrey Toobin whipping his pants off. What was Toobin thinking? So it's all contextual, isn't it?
Well, I guess it depends on who you're asking.
Yeah, I think from the female perspective on that, I think it's easy for men to say it's contextual, but I think for women, it's literally everyday life. So context is our life. I think we instantly think of sexual assault or behavior that's demeaning to us as having to be physical in nature, first of all, but it's literally embedded in everything we do, in my professional life, in my personal life. we're always in a constant state of feeling that reality. So it doesn't have to be physical assault that is abusive to us as females. And I think that's the part where sometimes as women, we don't even realize that we're in an abusive situation because it's numbing and we've just gotten used to being treated in a way that really isn't okay and doesn't benefit us or you guys as men.
Well, the men could argue that it benefits them greatly.
Well, you think it does because you only know what you know. But the reality is there's a lot more that women have to offer and bring if you let us.
Oh, I
But
agree.
men don't.
I personally agree. I'm just saying that there's a system in place that doesn't agree and doesn't want to give up what they got going. It's the same reason that racism continues to exist.
Absolutely.
Why give up power if you have it?
Precisely.
Because is that the greatest thing you can have is power? Yeah, I guess. Keep it. But isn't there more to life than that?
I think it's hard for people to admit they're privileged, and I certainly understand the position I'm in, and I'm grateful for it, and I recognize it, but I recognize that it's on the backs of others as well. And this is why I tried to start a union in my uncle's company back overseas. I was like Spartacus. And this podcast is an opportunity for us to continue to fight the good fight. I feel like as men, maybe we should just shut the fuck up and let you talk. How reasonable, because I want to say toots and I want to say dame and I want to say doll face. What's wrong with me saying you got nice hairs? Because that's what it's come down to. You can't really say anything other than you have nice hair, and that's the standard level of interaction you should have in the world. And it starts at a very young age. Go ahead, Dick.
No, I agree with you. I think it's our attempt to resolve matters superficially, have gone too far where you just can't say anything or men's voices aren't valuable because you're supposed to just not talk, which doesn't help at all, in fact. So, yeah, I won't agree to those extremes because I don't think that solves the problem. But I think it's intent matters. And male intention, just like female intention, matters. Are you aware of your intent when you're doing that? And what is your intent? Is it ill-intended? You should ask yourself that.
Yeah, I think it's the internal struggle. But it's also a way of thinking. So now you'll have people who will say, I've come from a traditional background where a man courted a woman and there's levels of interaction that are good-natured. They're not meant to be harmful.
No, I think that's women want to still be able to have those normal, natural, organic experiences with men and other women. So I don't think we're the proponents for when we talk about equality or trying to make up for anything that's ever happened to us. I think we care about the intent of others and whether we can feel safe and secure and capable and confident in a situation, or are we being subjugated? Are we being abused? Are we being mistreated? And that's unfortunately the lens we have to look through. I make sure every time I walk to my car that I know what's under it, what's around it, what's inside of it. Do you think about that every time you walk to your car?
I don't.
I do.
Why do you think men are so against the idea of stopping this?
Well, you just said it. Why would we give up power if we have it?
There's all sorts of mixed messages out here, too. That's my problem with the whole thing. There's women that seem to like being submissive and enjoy that, both in and out of the bedroom, and then at the same time seem to want equality. So it's like, which is it? Which is it?
And I think that's totally fair, right? I don't think you're alone in that, T. And I think that's, you guys know, Dick is a huge proponent of communication, and talking through those things is literally the only word of advice I have, because I think it's dangerous for us to think, whether it's in the bedroom or not, that a woman that wants to be submissive or even is interested in things that are particularly sexually appealing to her that might be perceived as subjugation of some sort, that she finds that attractive or she finds that appealing.
There's whole genres of porn dedicated to this stuff.
There's tons of them, absolutely. And there's a lot of women that have fetishes about that.
Absolutely. That's why I'm asking.
Many women have rape fantasies. Now, why do they have those?
Yeah.
Right? That's one, great question. I'm not a huge rape fantasy person. But what I don't want men to do is either use that as an excuse to be just in a state of confusion without talking about it, or to suggest that a submissive woman, no matter what, means that I can take advantage of her. Because there's times where I would love to be submissive and I want to be and I feel submissive, but that's not the characteristic of my personality that anyone knows me as, and therefore it's not tolerated when I'm submissive. I'm ignored essentially as a submissive female. That sucks, because I'm seen as a female that's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, constantly having to be the on-point, confident, direct, independent female. Man, I want to break too.
Yeah, you just want to be wined and dined.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I want to lay there.
Maybe just whined. It's okay.
See, but then men want this too. We've discussed this, and this is why I'm so confused. I asked you about the kind of tying back to our conversation we were just having. The whole idea that women think that they're in control when they're sucking on dick.
Right.
This is just eye-opening to me. You're the one with a penis in your mouth. Look at yourself. There's no threat here. Men don't feel threatened. Now, if more dicks were getting bit off, this is a different story. Now, all of a sudden, you women have some leverage, and you're proving your point that you're in control here, not men.
But you relate power to threat, and I was relating power to I'm in control of your pleasure versus I'm in control of a threat to you.
Well, I'm
in control of your pleasure at that stage, and that is nothing more appealing than that.
So this is basically how the patriarchy operates. It's under the threat. The implication, as Dennis and Always Sunny would say.
Yeah.
That is how
yes.
That threat, that constant threat, whether it be physical or otherwise, is how I think men in a toxic masculinity situation or a patriarch type role behave.
Yeah, it is. And it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, and it's what you're taught. You're taught that not only to use fear and a threat against women, but each other. I mean, that's aggressive, right? That's an aggressive approach where it's hard to imagine the concept of when women talk about power, it doesn't mean threat isn't involved, but we're also talking about power in other ways. Like I said, being in control of your pleasure or buying you a meal. The idea of whining and dining you,
Whoa.
Does that relieve you of some power? And how do you feel about that? Because for us as a female, it again allows us to serve you. So it puts me in a power role of serving you. And serving shouldn't be a negative thing as a male or a female. And unfortunately, we're not supposed to see ourselves like that as strong females.
We think that's an agrarian issue or an issue of labor and how we constructed labor as a belief, as an ideology and advertising and in capitalism.
I had an eye-opening experience, Saif. An epiphany, if you will. I was putting together this treadmill tonight with my friend, and she's sitting there trying to thread this screw through a hole, and she just couldn't find it. So obviously we were making all sorts of jokes about why she couldn't find the hole, this, that, and the other. But it was just one other point that I was trying to make about why men are obviously picked for these manual labor roles. They're just naturally better at it, I guess. The heavy lifting, the screwing. But how do we execute equality in situations like that, or do we?
Well, I think the question is, do you have to? Like, do you feel like the need in that moment versus being able to recognize the gifts that anyone can give, knowing that while your friend may not have had the skill set, there are other women who could easily find the hole and screw the screw in the hole. And so this doesn't have to be a male-female issue, even though there's a predominance there. Men are good at hard labor, and women were always traditionally seen as the women who did people-oriented jobs, like we mentioned, teaching or social work.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So
Nurturing.
if
Shouldn't we
we...
celebrate that too, but also recognize we can evolve beyond that?
Well, I don't know if we can evolve beyond that a ton. How many women are you going to get out on the construction site?
More if men stop being dicks out on the construction site.
But like, how many women are going to
Assaulting
be
them.
able to lift?
With nail guns and shit.
Yeah, with the evolution of technology, yes, and women getting stronger and stronger. Absolutely. Have you seen those ladies lately?
There should be a football league too.
There's-
equal sports. You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah, that's there. That's a perfect example. Let's just throw them all into one co-ed league and see what happens. What do you think's going to happen,
Well,
Dick?
I think we
we
know
have
what
all
would happen.
three?
Well,
Yeah.
what's going to happen,
We have
Dick? If these women are getting stronger, then what's going to happen to them if we have a co-ed league? Say tackle football
So-
or hockey.
American
why can't we have all
Ninja Warrior. Men and women compete together. And there are plenty of ladies who kick plenty of dudes' butts.
I'm not talking about
American
American
Ninja
Ninja Warrior. I'm not talking about softball. I'm talking about
We've also
physical.
started putting women on the front lines with guns now.
Yeah. I want to
women
see.
are cops.
I want to
Those are the worst
see.
ones.
Put them on the front line. Let them serve in the military in all forms, right? Why'd we make a fuss over that? Women on the front lines dying for their country.
Well, let's just get a heavyweight female boxer in the ring with Tyson and just see what happens.
I think Tyson's
Honestly?
unfair, but we do
Yeah.
know that the top
What, he lost,
the top
right?
female boxer is interested in kicking Jake Paul's ass. So I do want to see
Yeah,
that.
it'd be badass. I would probably go to somebody's house who paid for that. I wouldn't pay for it myself.
But the whole point being that
What's her name? Because we got to give her a shout out at some point.
Claressa Shields, I think. She said she'd beat the shit out of Jake Paul.
Say her name though. This time with
she's
feeling.
one of the greatest female boxers. She's the 3-weight world champion, I believe. And
She has
she
an
said-
open invitation
yeah,
to the Catch the Sky podcast.
Claressa Shields. Shout out.
you're welcome to join us whenever.
We hate Jake Paul. I'm from Arizona. We hate him. We want his butt whooped for what he did to our mall, our beautiful mall, Scottsdale.
So this reminds me of the Sarah Fuller situation more recently. Men were just hoping that she would get crushed out on the field. The comments section on social media was just littered with trash. We're talking requests for gangbangs, requests for cookies, requests for her to get smashed on the field. Like,
Don't they have I guess, should that language even be censored? That's the real question then, right? So then people are upset about Facebook and Twitter. Should those comments be regulated? Where does free speech play a role?
Well, and I think this is the point, though. We can be outraged by that, and I am certainly. Sarah Fuller is an amazing kicker for Vanderbilt. Like, let her do her thing, but we get outraged at those stories, and those make easy comments. But, like, how often is this type of language inserted into everything, right?
Oh, that's what I'm
even
saying.
the article most recently about a female with a PhD using doctor. Like, come on. Like, really? Like, we're going to make a story out of whether you should or shouldn't use the title doctor with a female? Like, we constantly find this type of rhetoric associated with females. Always.
But why is it tolerated? Why do people get away with this?
Well, and I guess
Postal carriers.
tolerance is the question of what more do you want us to do as women other than come out and make it clear that we don't accept it. Okay, it's unacceptable to us. What else am I supposed to do? What more am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to play your game? Am I supposed to threaten you?
Bite some dicks?
Well, so, and that's what
Wow.
I'm saying, though. Remember, that's your role, not mine, because you're the aggressive, threat-provoked power tripper. That's not the way that I want to find my power in society.
To beat a man, you got to fight like a man, though. You got to think like a man. Unfortunately,
Are you welcoming me to the patriarchy? T? 'Cause that sounds more. That pretty much sounds like the best welcome I could get.
I'm saying to beat the system, you got to think like an insider.
And I would argue quite the opposite, because I think as soon as we stoop to that level, right? I think that's the problem. I think if we started playing like that, now we've just got a society full of nothing but men, essentially, and women being like men, and there could be nothing worse, in my opinion.
But men are never going to clean their act up on their own.
Sure, but I don't think acting like one and meeting you on your playing field is the way to do it either.
Listen, I'm just suggesting that a couple of dicks get bit off.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not against the couple of dicks getting bit off either. I think that being the only answer is the problem.
Well, what else can we do?
I'm in favor of Lorena Bobbit. I'm team Lorena Bobbit versus John Wayne.
So I think it's actually great question. What if I pose the opposite to you? Why don't you guys start to funnel some of that feminine energy, where you guys start to speak out in a way that isn't aggressive and start to flip the tables and say, clearly aggressive energy that's threatening in nature is what's fueling and is a proponent, as we all agreed here, is where you guys are finding your power from. And that's clearly putting women in the crosshairs, or anybody that's considered your next victim, and women are predominantly that. So why don't you guys switch up your narrative or your behavior and start trying the opposite, where we do nonviolent communication and start speaking more in that way? Or are we too afraid? Is that too effeminate?
I personally always try to open the door for a woman whenever I'm with her, whether I'm courting her or not. Are you
talking like actually, or are you using an analogy here?
No, I actually do this. I do things that women are surprised by all the time. So I personally try to do this and advocate for them on a regular basis, to the point where I think people think that I'm gay.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's that aspect of it too. I try to
and that's for
embrace,
you to have to fight through.
Right. I try to embrace feminine culture as much as I can and empower them, and I'm viewed a certain way.
Of course you are. But now if more of you were doing that, suddenly there's a normalcy that comes with it. It's going to take leadership to do that. Just like it took leadership amongst women to stop just being victims and to start speaking. You know how hard that is? We lose our jobs for that. We lose opportunities for that. We lose our reputations for that, right? And so, but we have to do it, because if any one of us didn't, we can't wait for men to do it for us. And so I think you as men have to realize, yeah, you're probably going to receive some type of backlash for speaking out on behalf of men, that not all men are assholes, right? Not all men are. And people are going to call you gay. Fuck those people. But yeah, they are, right? Just another issue with our society that happens. But you have a really powerful voice, and you can either be aggressive with it and continue to be part of the problem, or you can use it and start being part of the solution and encourage other people to. I think you guys are by having this podcast. Not everyone's willing to let Dick come and talk about this on their podcast, so.
Nice. That's a little plug for yourself.
Someone has to. Welcome to being a woman. No one else is going to plug for me. I'm going to have to plug it. Keep that in there, too. Don't edit that out. So here's something for you guys that I always find interesting. I've always known this as a woman, but being in the podcast business specifically. So like female commentators, specifically females on the radio, the number one or one of the primary complaints or hate mail comments that they get is not about the content of their stories or the content that ever comes out of their mouth. It's about the sound of their voice. And men, predominantly the complaints you guys get is going to be about the content of your stories. How dare he said this, or why did he cover that? And women, it's always first and foremost the sound of her voice.
It's so funny that
Right?
you say this because, again, Always Sunny. I'm so glad that we started watching that show a little bit more, Safe, because they hit on all this and it's hilarious. There's the episode with Wolf Cola. I don't know if you saw that one, but Frank accidentally starts selling Wolf Cola to Boko Haram, and they have to go on the news and get in front of the narrative. They got to control the story. So Dennis has a big plan about what he's going to say, and Dee has to come with him just to be there for looks. He doesn't want her to say anything. And underneath, they have like a live Twitter feed of what's going on and people's reactions. And then as soon as Dee starts talking, everybody gets pissed off. He's like, I told you to shut the fuck up.
I think that show, more than anything, speaks to the credit of Danny DeVito. When he even enters season 2, the show takes on a whole new meaning. And they just crossed every line possible.
Exactly.
And there's going to be a day where people are going to find this comedy offensive.
Oh, absolutely. But
it is genius.
But I don't want to get too far off track, but he starts that episode by walking into the bar, setting his gun down on the bar, and then pulling out a giant Ziploc bag filled with Coke and just sticking a straw into it. And then after he's done, he looks over and everybody else is at the other end of the bar, and he's like, "Oh, hey, were you guys there the whole time?" They're like, "Yeah." Is coming in and blowing Coke part of your normal morning routine? He's like, "Yeah." So just like you said,
reminds me.
everything that he does is just fucking over the line. And he's celebrating on that particular morning because Wolf Cola is now the official soft drink of Boca Raton. But it turns out it was Boko Haram.
So comedy like this, workplaces like this, I think there's a part of us as a culture that I think we can find a happy medium where, again, we're just respectful of each other, but we don't cross the line. But we still want to be able to build camaraderie. Like meeting sometimes you end up meeting someone you love at work. What do you say to people who are against workplace relationships?
That's what I'm saying.
From an assault point of view.
So, oh God, I've worked in restaurants.
We're talking HR here on the Catch This Guy.
That's right. I've worked in restaurants and
human resource issues.
The sinful things that go on behind kitchen doors. 9 times out of 10, your food is fine. It's just what the servers are doing and saying to each other that's appalling. Anybody that's seen the movie Waiting, I mean, it's spot on. Everybody's fucking everybody. Asses were getting smacked all over the place in these kitchens. I mean,
I should have gotten more ass at University of Phoenix.
Is this in the wrong business? Clearly,
this would be assault, but like you said, it seems like it's just part of what is acceptable in different workplace environments. So does where you work dictate what's acceptable or what the line is?
It also depends on the situation, right?
I think we've allowed it to. I think that's the social constructs that we've found ourselves in. But that's part of when we got away from a collectivist society where the patriarchy hasn't always existed. Let's not forget. There used to be collectivist societies and villages where, you know, men and women had equality already and fucked freely, right? Where a slap on the ass from either side wasn't going to be offensive. It wasn't used as a power and control. It wasn't used as a threat. It wasn't used to overpower. That's where we went wrong. And that's why now HR exists. That's why rules exist, because how do you control that now that we live in a society that that type of behavior has become prevalent? I'd love to go back to the society where we could all just slap each other's ass and it's not offensive. And if it was, I'd knock you in the face, you know?
Exactly.
We're just horrible at getting along with each other.
I tend to agree with you. I just don't know. How do we get everybody to chill out? This is why they need to legalize weed a lot sooner. Everybody needs to just chill.
And then get rid of alcohol?
And decriminalize sex workers.
There we go.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be real about it.
Isn't this what they tried doing in the 60s? And everybody was having a great time, weren't they?
But doesn't that reward aggression, or do we call that love? Like, where does this aggression come from that's in my body?
I think it's probably a pent-up inability to communicate and get it out because you're afraid of being called gay.
That's my biggest thing.
He's not afraid of it. Yeah.
The aggression, I think, comes from being misunderstood is the biggest thing. And let's not get it twisted. Being desired or having sex or interacting and having a partner like that definitely makes things a lot easier. And so I feel like women have a leg up in that realm because I feel like a woman, if she wanted to, can procure sex from a man a lot easier than a man can from a woman. And therefore, that can be frustrating to some men. And then this can lead them to make poor decisions and do things that they might not normally do and hurt somebody else.
I think your guys' first response, though, is aggression, right? Because it's to suggest when you made the comment about easier for women to procure or being in a relationship is easier, that's actually where women probably end up finding the most frustration is in relationships. Because the realities of being in a couple specifically, sex isn't just about procuring sex then at that stage, especially for women, or at least speaking for women. There's so many other dynamics that go into a relationship that can cause more unhappiness than happiness, especially when communication isn't happening. And so why is it not our first response to be aggressive? What do? We're repressive. And so are you guys. Your repressions come out as aggression, right? Ours come out in other ways or don't come out at all. So that's depression. You'll see a lot of that, I think, and how men and women handle depression, right? Super different often.
Yeah.
And so I think there's just that notion of we're both feeling the same emotions. We're expressing them differently. And some of that, I think, is socialized. I think it's acceptable for you guys to be aggressive and find aggressive outlets. For women, we're a fucking Karen immediately.
I think the problem is that nobody wants to talk. But in addition to that, people struggle listening. That's something that I personally struggle with. But I also feel like people don't want to talk as much as I do. So when I talk, there's sometimes where I just want to talk and just talk and talk, and I don't really expect any sort of response one way or the other. You can say whatever you want. I'm just going to keep the conversation going, and I just enjoy that interaction with people. Whereas other people seem to just enjoy making small talk and don't like having conversations that really go anywhere. And so then I feel like I'm just trying to take control of the whole situation of the conversation, and I'm mansplaining everything or feel like I am because the other people don't want to talk as much.
So I struggle the same way because my primary form of communication is talking, right? But I think we also have to recognize that not everyone's primary form of communication is to immediately talk like us. They express themselves in other ways or communicate differently. So kind of that, not just introvert versus extrovert, but, there's lots of different communication styles of people. I struggle very much with that because I can't relate. I can relate to talkers. And so, great, let's talk about it. And so my first response is, why don't we talk about it? Where I have to remember, why don't we communicate about it? And whatever communication means to you, but whatever it is, let's not be expressing ourselves. So if that means you have to write it down, if that means you have to wait a minute, but make sure you get it out of your system, you and me, T, we're just going to talk immediately.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Pretty sure Saif lands in that same boat too. Like, what are you waiting for? Let's just talk.
Yeah.
Hence the reason we're on a podcast right now.
Yeah, and that gets me in trouble sometimes too because I just start talking.
Always.
Always. Not sometimes.
No, me.
Always.
It always gets me in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, mine more often than not. But that's because I feel like I just want to resolve whatever's going on or engage, learn with the person that I'm talking to.
And we're intimidating to people who aren't predominant talkers. And so then they feel shut down as well. I'm direct, I'm forward, I can be aggressive in nature with the energy that I put off. And so that can be a really off-putting thing as a female. But more importantly, and this is probably the greater struggle, is despite every effort I've made in my life to have to overcome the patriarchy and be that strong, independent, direct female that I am, sometimes you just want to be subordinate, and sometimes you just want to be pursued, and sometimes you want to just be able to lay there and get fucked. And I think the reality of that is that as women, we don't get to be both. There's always this expectation of who I am is I'm the one who takes initiative, or in every facet of my life, right? And so equitable sex then becomes a difficulty for any partner with someone like me, I know, because what are those social norms? Those social norms, as a man who's trying to be considerate, is trying to take cues from me. So how do you know as a man when my switch is flipped and I'm going from aggressive dick in your face to subordinate pussy laying there hoping you pursue me? That's a tough switch, right? But I'm all
you
of
don't
those
give
things.
us any clues or signals as
None
to
at all. Zero.
how to
I'm
drive
kidding.
the car.
I'm kidding. There's so many clues.
I didn't even know where the clitoris was till I was 26.
That's what YouTube is for, bro.
That was another question I
YouTube
had.
didn't exist.
You're so old.
Not about the
When I
clitoris,
discovered
but
YouTube, I didn't work for 3 days straight.
what is a hypersexual woman's average monthly budget on panties?
We don't wear panties, sweet tea.
No,
Well, then, in that case, what is your average monthly budget on socks?
So obviously, we don't work the same way you guys do. So none of that's a necessity. Like,
I'm talking.
So I think
no,
there's a
no.
lot
I'm
of
talking about.
misunderstanding
If you're not soaking your panties because there's a lack
not.
thereof,
Wear
then
a
it's
liner.
got to be
There's a liner.
soaking all the way down to your socks.
No, this is going to be a misconception you all have of female anatomy and how all females work. And so I will tell you that.
Listen, I've gotten women soaked to their socks. Let's not
I
get
read
things
the
twisted.
monologues. God damn it.
And I will let you all put that trophy on your shelf. Whatever other monolithic trophies you need on your shelf.
Don't take my monolith.
Sorry, it presented itself. Whatever phallic trophies you need on your wall to feel good about yourselves, I'll let you have them. What I will tell you, though, from an anatomy of a female is that the wetness of a female is not always the indication of an aroused female or a female that has reached climax. Just so we all
What?
understand.
Bullshit.
I know. Did you guys not listen to the last podcast about endometriosis?
Where
For instance, women who are afflicted?
Did we
which
get
decided
this
every
fucking
woman's
fake
afflicted.
news nonsense? This is some horse shit. Listen, if I get done pounding a chick and I'm trucking her so hard that her
I would have
the
thought
pressure
you fucking
builds
older
up
women would have known
inside
about vaginal dryness.
and I pull out and it's just like a fountain all over the place, you're going to tell me that that's not from the arousal of me just plowing her cervix
might be genetics,
moments
Steve.
before?
No, I didn't say it wasn't. I'm saying that's not always an indicator for women. Is that there are women who get aroused and who climax who don't soak your dick, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah.
And again, as a man who appreciates older women, again, get ready. Vaginal dryness is real, guys. So
that's why you
welcome
just
to
go
the
down
hormones
often.
of women.
You just got to go down.
It's always dry.
There you go, right? Saif knows this intimately.
Just spit on that pussy.
God, I'm a 68.
Yeah, I mean, lube is real, right? There's plenty of ways to assist that.
Spit's much better.
I just get down there. Yeah, I'm a savage.
For sure. And so, again, whatever monolithic trophies you all need, I can appreciate all of those. I just want you to
why is there a
understand
trophy involved? I just want to spit on that
because
pussy.
there's this suggestion that when she climaxes and you find it to be that wet, that must mean you accomplished the job. And I am just suggesting be patient with those gals that maybe don't have that same physical response. They too can be hypersexual.
All right, but is there a situation where there's a puddle on my floor and that's not the result of sexual arousal?
It can be, yeah, absolutely. There's all kinds of reasons that fluid falls out of
aside from them
our
just
vaginal canal.
Pissing or me blowing a load
and
on her.
also for the record, yes, because squirting is nothing but urine.
I know.
FYI.
I know.
That's scientifically proven.
Saif, have you ever let a girl squirt in your face?
I've requested this, but it has never occurred. In fact,
never.
I now wonder, because I believe we all fake it. When a man climaxes, you know, because usually it's all over your tits at that point, right? And when a woman climaxes, you don't know because just them hooting and hollering, but often they're doing that for our sake or for our ego, or again, as a reinforcement of the patriarchy. Edit out that tit part. Keep it in.
Now you've killed him.
But I think all of that is a reinforcement of the patriarchy.
Oh my God.
Making a man feel that he's pleasing a woman.
I'll let you have that, but biologists and anthropologists haven't fully answered that question about specifically female copulatory vocalizations, which is essentially the sounds produced by females, because it's not just human females. Primates do it, non-primates do it, and there is still an outstanding question as to whether females do that for the sake of the male species to make you feel well endowed and better, or there are plenty of theories about other reasons why females would do that. We may be doing it to attract other men to get in on this. We might be doing it to yeah, I know, right? Think about that next time you're fucking a girl. The louder she is, the more she's trying to attract other dudes like your neighbor to come over and fuck her too.
I just figured it would be the roommate, but I guess...
Depends on how loud she is, right?
Depends on how the house is built, right? Yeah. Depends on the situation.
So more importantly then, why do you think copulatory vocalization isn't popular in men? Like, instead you guys show it through like your mufflers in your vehicles or your motorcycle or all the other god-awful loud noises that you guys like to make. But why do you think you don't do that?
As you're saying that I can hear motorcycles erupt in my neighborhood.
Right?
Yeah, the bigger truck the engine,
That's your form of copulatory vocalization as a man.
No.
I'm just curious why men aren't. I think you're talking to the dog. I hope you're talking to the dog and not me.
No, I'm talking about. I don't do any of that. I just got this dick.
No, and I understand not all men do.
I just got this dick.
Is why isn't from a generalization standpoint, because we're talking generally here, why isn't male copulatory vocalization a thing?
Well, when you got this
and
dick,
would that suggest that
when I am loud, Dick, it is appreciated.
Are making it up?
I'm told it's appreciated by my partners.
As females, yes. Females, we love it. We want to hear it. It's very arousing, but men don't.
Yeah, I appreciate a little moaning on the other end, too. It lets me know that I'm doing something correct.
Sure, it's a form of communication. I'm just curious
versus, ow, right? Get off my hair.
Saif knows that I have a good dick. So, I mean, when you're working with that kind of knowledge, it's just public knowledge. You don't need a big truck or a fancy motorcycle or whatever.
To be fair, T,
Saif,
when
do
I
you
was
ever
there
yell
eating
T's name during sex?
when T was handling business and I was eating M&Ms out of the fridge, I heard nothing. It was silent. I was like I was in a fucking library.
Well, that's also because you were fucking roaming around out in the fucking kitchen. Like we didn't fucking know.
Well, it wasn't loud enough. She wasn't trying to holler to attract me, obviously, and you weren't trying to attract me either because you weren't yelling or moaning.
Well, so then I think we've solved the biological question, right? Then that's why they do it, is to attract other men, and she clearly wasn't interested in you, Saif.
Nobody in that house was interested in you that night.
Also, question T, was it so quiet you could tell he was eating M&Ms out there?
Oh no.
Nothing
I was face deep in pussy at that point.
It was the only thing that was edible. Everything else was fucking condiments. What kind of fucking household is this? I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Equal Rights Amendment.
No, hold on though. I'm gonna get there because I think we want to talk about equal pay. But here's a question then is a great segue. So, male gigolos make a third of what, say, female escorts make, right? So as much as we want, and I only bring that up because I think the sex concept of this is really interesting. Why is it that in all the other, many areas anyways, other than like modeling, all of those aesthetic professions, right? Women get paid cents on the dollar to men, except in the industry of sex, female porn stars, female escorts. There's a show on Showtime. It's an older show, Gigolos. Fantastic, guys, by the way. But very clear, and you feel very bad for these guys because they are literally making a third of what any woman is going to make doing the exact same thing. And arguably, they have to work harder. True. Yeah, they have to work harder. You got to get your dick up. You got to keep it up. You got to perform. Jesus. Like, women don't have to do that. And you have to be willing to fuck anything that calls and is willing to pay.
I was in my early 20s.
What?
I was willing to fuck anything in my early 20s. Now I have standards. The younger women prefer it. I can't deal with older women. They're too needy.
Gotcha. Well,
so Saif, as a former gigolo, how did you feel about the pay discrepancy?
Well, I couldn't even get the job.
Like you were,
I was in a Houston strip club. I was trying to become a gigolo, and it started at a strip club. And I went in for an audition, and the guy said that I needed to put on weight. That I was only 160 pounds at the time, so he wanted me to be 180. And he also wanted to make sure that I had a girlfriend. And I needed 5 routines. I think I was going to do Aladdin, was going to be one of them. I think construction worker was taken.
So you were going to be a stripper, not a gigolo.
Which was the start of my gigolo career. I was going to work at Ritz.
Got it.
In Houston.
Yeah, my apologies. I didn't realize there was a spectrum.
Yeah, he was going entry level.
Well, just like not all women feel the same. I mean, not all variations of gigolo. Like it starts you could start as a stripper and then you're doing hand jobs in the back. Like I was working towards giving women hand jobs in the champagne room. And I never got
There's
there.
no sex in the champagne room.
Cornbread.
Okay.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
So let's say you had become a gigolo. Do you feel like as a man you should have been paid equally or more based on the effort you'd have to put forward versus, say, a female?
I think that
In the same profession.
20-year-old, 19-year-old man then would have just been happy to have the job and doing what he loved. So I didn't think of it in that and on a scale where I would have known women. I would just thought if I did really well enough that a sugar mama would have come along and swooped me up like Anna Nicole Smith when she got picked up in a Dallas strip club by that 80-year-old millionaire. And
So in that
would have
case,
happened to
women
me.
should be okay getting paid less and just doing what they love and waiting for a sugar daddy to just scoop them up.
I think that's the argument back to anybody, that especially like teachers, like, oh, you shouldn't get paid that much, even though I don't know if that is an argument against it, that they're doing what they love. I don't know if teachers are actually doing it because they love it. I'm assuming they do.
Well,
I'm hoping.
I think that brings up a bigger question. Why is that field predominantly female?
Because
As
they
I
dominate.
understand-
There's cocks lying all over the place. Like I said, women can go and get fucked by whoever. They don't got to pay for anything.
Well, if you look at professions,
Some
you see, and maybe some of this is shifting now, and this is part of, some of that push for females in STEM education. But generally speaking, historically, you saw women going into what would be perceived as social services, those things that supported and nurtured people, and men doing those laborious tasks that were more things. And so those were the higher paid professions. Is that by nature of the patriarchy that valued those roles of men that men were predominantly taking versus the roles of females? I mean, that's where we've come into this. Now I think that's the important thing to look at, is look at the damage that the patriarchy has done. We like to suggest that teachers are one of the most important professions, right? But do we pay them like it is? No. So that's our struggle, and our battle is, how do you be inclusive to people who don't communicate at the same level or style that we do, but still promote an open communication space that people feel comfortable and safe to communicate in.
And this is why we have social
I don't know
media.
the answer to that. Yes. Yeah, there you go.
Everybody can just comment from behind their little screen.
This takes on a form of therapy as well. This is a place where people can go. It's a shared place where we can share experiences to a degree. I mean, we're begging for engagement, but how do you share something like that in a room where judgment, you put it out there? Like
Exactly.
everybody told their story. I think that's what the Me Too movement was about. And maybe as men, that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to tell our story. But then everybody's already heard our story. But
Yeah, let's have our own Me Too movement. I'm sure the women will love that.
I don't think it's about having your own. I think we're trying to be collective and inclusive with each other, right? So we're trying to join forces.
No,
Because I
this is
think
about
not
the
only
patriarchy, though, so it's got to be our own.
If you guys didn't only tell your own stories, but also were willing to tell the stories of other women, just like we as women can tell the stories of other men, that might be helpful. Because I would say, as a female, I feel most comfortable in a room being able to talk about those things or bring those things up, or standing up for myself in a room that I know that the threat level is minimized, right? Where I have, not aggressive men, but men who are understanding and capable of meeting me at that same place. No different than me having to meet you guys in your struggles. But more often than not, that's not the room I'm walking into. And so, yeah, do I protect myself, and in a way that makes you feel pretty damn terrible walking out? Yeah, it does. As a woman, the worst feeling in the world is not standing up for yourself, not telling somebody that you were abused, not reporting those types of things because you don't feel like you can, because you're trying to save your career, save your paycheck, save your reputation, save any of those things. I will tell you, that is that is like being victimized all over again. And it's a victimization we live with. I get to live with those experiences. I get to know that plenty of times I didn't take that opportunity, which means probably other women got abused too because of that.
This is why I try to make everybody in the room feel comfortable by being the weird person. Or being the person that is comfortable enough to say that I am somebody that struggles greatly with mental illness. I'm a suicide survivor. There's obviously cuts up and down my arm that I'm sure people see all the time and don't ask me about. I have scars on my face. I am a loud person. There's all sorts of things that I do that people see that should make them feel a lot better about themselves. But it doesn't bother me. It's all part of my story and who I am. But to kind of go in the direction of what you were describing, I try to provide that space where people can feel comfortable to just be themselves or talk about whatever. And when I do get people to open up a little bit, it's great. But more often than not, and it seems more lately, people are not willing to go anywhere near that road.
Yeah, and you have to remember all you can do is create the safe space, right? That's all any one of us can do. And then secondarily, we can encourage our peer groups to do the same.
Well, Safe's responsibility
that,
to create the safe space.
Right. But yeah, he's got a copyright on that name.
Yeah.
But in the end, right, you have to realize what you're working with. I mean, especially like even for me as a female, I have years and years and years of that type of abuse under my belt of consistently being treated that way and consistently feeling unsafe in a room, right? Whether it's mentally, emotionally, or physically, that I'm not just going to immediately be like, oh, look at that, you know, crazy suicidal guy in the room. Well, that makes me feel better. I'm going to talk too. Not necessarily, T, right? Like, we might need a couple rounds. And more importantly, if you're the only one in the room, I need to know that you've also buttered up your other dudes in the room and everyone, right? Because otherwise, you're just going to be the one that's not participating in the gang rape that's about to happen.
Well, basically, yeah, that's I'm comfortable enough for myself.
I'm like, well, I at least know he's not going to be
exactly,
one. So now I can count
exactly.
It's only going to be 4 instead of 5.
So if I was told that I am only in control of myself. So if I can at least get the point across that I'm not going to be involved in the gang rape, then I'm fine.
Well, and maybe I'm asking you guys to step up your game and try to encourage your friends not to gang rape
that's
too.
precisely
That's
why
all I'm asking.
Why we're having this podcast and we're having this conversation so that the world can know that we are encouraging you guys to not participate in this type of behavior.
Unless, of course, she asks for it, which is back to that conversation we had about women and their particular fetishes. I don't want to disenfranchise those women.
No. It's kind of hot sometimes, but I watch a lot of
That was always a
porn.
weird fantasy for me to be a part of, only because I couldn't tell if they were being serious or not.
What, the woman?
It's a joke. Okay, it was a bad joke. It was a tough fantasy.
Oh my God.
You want me to what?
So I think, you know, especially in this day and age, I think because everything can be construed as, that's that hypersensitive culture that we're living in, every one of us is very capable of the sexual harassment at very least. I can say I guarantee you I have unintentionally, but I was just going through my text messages right now and I'm like, yep, that was sexual harassment. Yep, that was sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. Unintentional.
Grade 9.
I thought it was a funny joke, but if I understand the power structure associated with who I'm texting, for instance, right, if I'm a superior to somebody that I'm texting this particular joke to, if those tables are turned, right? And it's my male counterpart to me, and I'm the subordinate, that's considered sexual harassment. So what I'm doing to a male subordinate is no different. But it was
You're
really
Demi Moore. I always thought it was interesting. Any film or media interpretations of sexual assault in the workplace or sexual harassment, Demi Moore and Michael Douglas, right? And it's Demi Moore who's harassing Michael Douglas, which isn't the likely scenario, at least not for that day and age. It's always the patriarchy. It was always the patriarchy.
Yeah, because it's fetishized and it's a fantasy to have the woman be the aggressor.
Yeah, but even then, this was in the 80s. God bless the 80s, right? You know, Reagan was president. Crack was on the rise. AIDS was up.
So how do we get equality without women stooping to men's level?
Stop gang banging.
How can we meet in the middle?
Nobody wants to gangbang?
So here's what I'll say. Again, I'm going to drop some statistics.
Equal Rights Amendment here? Are we going?
Well, so you want equality, right? I'm all about it. Here's what I'll say.
Equality under the law. I don't think that's anything too much.
Here's what I'll say from a gender equality standpoint, right? If we look at our friends in Iceland, they are ranked, and I think they have been ranked like for a decade now as like the number one country for gender equality. And which is actually kind of surprising if we think of it, because if I'm thinking of Iceland, I'm like, all the men go fishing, and I don't really know what Icelandic women do, but nonetheless, all the men go fishing.
They've got
a
pirate party.
Stereotype of Iceland. Yeah, right. So,
and I'm pretty sure it's headed by a woman, or was headed by a woman at one point.
So here's the deal, though, is that
that's what they're doing.
The Icelandic men enjoy one of the highest life expectancies in Europe. So because of that equality, they have a far less stressful life. Because I'm going to tell you, trying to lead the patriarchy, guys, is stressing you out.
Whoa.
It's causing mental illness, and then you don't want to talk about that because it's not manly to talk about your problems. And we as women are allowed to have problems because we're just problems.
What if it's
right?
just the fish?
What's that?
What if it's just the fish?
Well,
people in Japan have a huge life expectancy. And it's because they're eating all that fish.
What came first, though? The equality or the fish is the question. Was it the fish oil that made them go, you know what? I'm mentally stable now, and I believe equality is a good thing. Or did they have equality that made them far more stable? I think it's a good question.
Is there equality in Japan?
Credit to the fish. Is there equality in Japan?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
No, they're very patriarchal. Yeah.
Well,
then
they're
definite patriarchal.
I think it's just the fish.
But they're on time.
I think this blows a hole in your whole fucking Icelandic equality fucking statistic. I just took my dick and just pierced a hole right inside that statistic.
You can't compete with Okinawa life. I'm pretty sure that's what all the Japanese people are taking. Look it up. It's a supplement. I've seen the infomercials. So
that's
fish. Clearly why. Fair enough. I'm just trying to help you men out that you wanted some equality, and I was trying to suggest equality might be pretty darn good for you guys.
I think we just need to eat more fish.
I've had women object to the notion of equality. They don't want equality anymore. So the Equal Rights Amendment no longer applies because I think women think they are equal under the law, which they're not. And the Violence Against Women's Act being rolled back, or
no, men don't want equality because they don't want to have to take the trash out for tea.
Is that it? I think it's the conditioning that somehow we're going to lose. Yeah, that place in the home. It is about taking the trash out.
No, I agree.
It's that notion of traditional.
I agree, because I think for women, though, I think, and for all of us, I guess, I think there's this notion that it's all or nothing, that equality immediately means that everything must change and we all must accept all of the same roles. And I don't think as a generalization that women don't want to take out the trash. Pretty sure there's plenty of women taking out the trash.
I'll take out the trash sometimes. I would just prefer not to.
Point.
I would prefer to do dishes every single day and have her take out the trash. Because honestly, it's my least favorite thing. I just don't like going outside into the cold.
Why? Why is it your least favorite thing? It should
Safe, because we have to fucking battle the elements up here, you asshole. It's not like fucking 50 degrees outside when we fucking
it's
go to
gonna rain tonight, T. Okay.
Oh god, it's gonna fucking rain. You know, I might slip and fall on my ass and break my fucking hip every time I go down to fucking take the garbage out.
And she's more likely to heal faster when she falls and breaks her hip.
Exactly. She bounces back better. So I need her ass out there on the ice. I'll do the dishes.
Well, who the hell? Why would you build stairs in a fucking snowy condition? I'm not grasping.
Oh, sorry that it's not perfectly flat out here. You know, god damn you.
It's so that she has something to shovel when she's out there because her back is in better shape than his too.
Precisely. I want women to be able to run for office just like men and have an equal shot. I want them to apply for the same jobs and have an equal shot. I want them to get paid equally. I want them to be able to be sexually or romantically assertive towards a man if they want to be.
Then what carrot can I dangle in your guys' faces that'll make you stop wanting power? Because I clearly have to find something that'll distract you, because otherwise
I've already given up in my career.
Well,
I know you're the perfect example.
As evidenced by my presence.
but
I've given up on my career.
This is.
I just want someone to take care of me.
Yeah. I'm saying that these are things that I want in a perfect world, but how do we
Bumble?
How do we make this happen, Dick? How do we make this happen as a whole on a grander scale, and not just her whole?
Answer,
I'm talking about society.
I wouldn't be on your guys' podcast. I'd be on one with far more millions of listeners if I knew the answer.
Well, this is how we get the listeners, all right? Is we fucking figure it out.
Well, and I think a lot of that responsibility, it's mutual. So I think, one, women have to shape up our fucking act and stop using it as an excuse, because we do. Right? So we need to be ready and prepared to say we do want that equality, and it comes with a responsibility, and accept that responsibility. And that responsibility isn't anything other than being a human being like everybody else and contributing to society, whatever that means, including taking out the trash. I was doing that the other day and I was thinking about you, T. There was no ice, but there was rain. So it was still some elements. Anyways, I think that is a huge piece, but I think then men, you guys have to hold each other accountable. When men misbehave, you can come and sit here and complain all about Brock Turner, but how many male voices were out there saying not only is this unacceptable, but we are going to shun that person in this society. T shouldn't be called gay for trying to be open and inclusive, but Brock Turner should be held accountable publicly for that type of behavior until men realize that is not an acceptable behavior in this culture. But right now it is. Right now it is. It's acceptable in the boardroom. It's acceptable in the bedroom. It's acceptable in the restaurant. It's acceptable everywhere. So how do we stop male culture? How do we stop it? You guys tell me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This goes one step further. And women need to be included more.
We're fighting for the heart of our culture.
I think women need to be included more at the legal level and political level, because if you use the example of Brock Turner, even the judge is sitting there and looking at him and all of his fucking athletic accolades or whatever and trying to give him a free pass. But do you think any female judge would have looked at him the same way?
Unfortunately, my answer to you is yes, and here's why. Not every female judge, and I think maybe there would have been a better chance with a female judge, but the problem is even with a female judge in there, it's like when I told you guys about female doctors. Female doctors are the worst when you're a female, right? And that's because There's already a societal norm that they have operated in to even become a judge in this patriarchal society. So in order for them to keep that title and to be a judge and to prove themselves, right? No different than that stigma that female cops get, right? Female cops get the rap of being even more aggressive because they're trying to prove themselves. So how do we get rid of that entire layer on this culture that suggests that that's the way that things should be, is that male dominant, aggressive threat? And I think the only way we do that is men have to make it very clear to other men that that is not acceptable. That's not acceptable. And how do you start a movement like that? Women start movements all the time. We have women's marches left and right, all over the place, all the time. Women are always constantly fucking marching. Right?
I want to include these
men
women
are
more.
joining men are joining women in these marches. And all we're asking for is equal rights.
White people are joining black people.
No doubt. But when do men hold other men accountable and say, we don't get to behave this way anymore? Like, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. Not in isolated situations, but constantly. When I'm sitting in a room with a whole bunch of men in a room and I'm the only female in that room, and I'm treated in a very particular way, the only person that speaks up about how it's inappropriate, how I'm being treated, is me.
So that's where
every other man in that room should have spoke up and said how that human being, not that woman, but that human being at the table is being treated isn't okay. I shouldn't have to be the one speaking up. I will, but I shouldn't have to be.
So that's where I agree with you that you shouldn't have to be the one that's speaking up. But unfortunately, the reality of the situation is that you find yourself having to do so. Therefore, This is why I use the logic that you would have strength in numbers. So what if there were another 1 or 2 women in the room now, as opposed to it just being you and a bunch of dudes?
Do you know what happens when there's more women in the room?
What? You just all start bitching at each other?
No, they side with the men because that's your fastest route to the top. Because by me speaking up,
women aren't a monolith.
I'm not getting to the top, guys. I'm the female that speaks out. I'm the female that speaks up. So therefore, I'm the female that stays where she's at.
That's why she's here.
That's why I'm here, right? But every other female keeps her mouth shut because she wants to get whatever those guys are willing to give her.
I guess there's...
And so when you've got a stupid female in the room who's willing to open her mouth, oh, that makes the other women look even better. Because at least they don't speak up. And you know what the biggest liability to a man is? A woman who speaks.
I guess there's less of the threat of the gangbang breaking out if there's more women present.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's a good way to curb the gangbang, because then it just turns into an orgy.
Yeah. Which is more inclusive, see?
Right.
They're
solving all
weird,
the problems.
I'm trying. I've
It's
been in
my
an orgy
new
once.
rule. There has to be an equal number of men to women in all meetings I go to from now on, so that there's no threat of a gangbang and orgies only.
Precisely.
I love it.
I've been in an orgy once, and I got to tell you, it was weird. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to be on. I just knew that I had options, and I just didn't know how I should use them. Should I explore some of those deeper banana fantasies that I've been having?
Was
just
it
rub
with
up on another
humans
man.
or animals?
Yeah. It was men and women. I don't think there were any animals in the room. Maybe some carpet, maybe a fur coat in the closet. I don't know. There was chocolate involved. It was dark. I just kind of wandered around as I didn't know which way I fit in. Everybody seemed to be more friendlier with each other, and I was kind of like the odd person out. So I just went around, maybe grabbed a boob here and there.
You would be the awkward dude.
I may have spent some time against the wall. I don't know.
Sounds like a
it was my
orgy
first orgy.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I was vulnerable. Anything could happen.
Yeah, everybody's vulnerable. That's the whole point. You just go grab somebody that's on their knees and stuff their face into your crotch. Just start from there.
There's not even
Clearly,
a
Saif
manual
wasn't
for
taking
this
the
shit.
aggressive approach.
It's a fucking orgy. Aren't there fucking rules? Aren't there like house rules? Like you do, like no, like there are no rules. Isn't that one of the rules? like there's no rules, and you definitely need 2 yeses for anal or something like that.
Is that it, though? Dave Chappelle's comedy making fun of the Kobe Bryant situation? Is that what needs to happen? That people just need to sign consent forms as they're getting into the bedroom?
Well, we act like the bedroom's the only place this happens. Come on now.
Yeah.
I think it's more domestic, right? Domestic assault, we're talking comparatively. It's not a man in the bushes. It's usually your partner.
Yeah, it's usually
So
your
it
partner.
says, let's go to
for sure.
Mexico. Let's drink tequila.
I mean, think about that. 1 in 3 women in their lifetime, guys, like, are going to have experienced this. That's how bad it is. And that's reported. Most women aren't even talking about it or don't even realize that they're in an abusive situation because that's how mentally fucked up their situation is. So yeah, it's a big problem to tackle. How do we change all men?
Start with the dicks.
The threat has to be real.
Can we use
Exactly.
AI for that? Because can we use robots to start biting dicks?
Yeah, you don't like the thought of it.
Yeah,
but
because
things got to get messy.
You need a VAR. You need a VAR for the bedroom.
You're a perv.
Somebody to come in there and review the videotape and determine which way the call should go.
I think that's what Pornhub was until they removed all their content this week.
Did they really?
They had to.
Yeah.
They
I'm
went
not
from
into that fantasy. I'm
13
still into the
million
80s.
They went from 13 million videos down to 2.7, 2.9 million because they had to get rid of all unverified content because they were accused of being infested with child abuse pornography.
That's awful.
And the crazy thing is that people are into this stuff. Even the teen stuff is it's labeled teen. It's just
I just feel bad because they're just a
18.
good Canadian company, you know? How can you hate the Canadians?
Well, at least they did the right thing.
Canadians are submitting to the vaccine, so I don't know.
I know, I was looking forward to vaccine porn.
Oh my God. I'm sure you can. There's plenty of nurse porn out there. There's plenty of that.
A lot of nurse porn. I can vouch for that.
Ooh, fun fact, Saif. Tying into our previous podcast. Blink 182, Enema of the State.
Enema of the State.
The nurse on the front cover, pulling the glove. Her name is Janine Lindemulder. And if you look her up, you will find out that she is an American pornographer.
Isn't she the guy's wife too?
No.
I like it as Janine Pirro.
No, that was, what's her name? Christy Barker? Or no. Fuck, what was her name? I forget what her name was. They had their show on TV, but no, that was not her. So I think what I'm hearing is that men need to be held more accountable for their actions, but it seems like when they're in a situation where they should be held accountable, they're not being held accountable, i.e. the Brock Turner situation. So what can we do besides bite dicks off?
Yeah,
I think it's education.
but I think
For me, it's always been education.
The key point to that is held accountable by other men. It can't be women having to constantly hold men accountable. That dynamic doesn't work. We're just the complaining women. Men have to hold other men accountable. There have to be consequences employed by men on men for bad behavior.
So I guess it becomes kind of a cyclical conversation then, because again, if you look at the Brock Turner situation, we had a male judge that didn't do anything about it.
But who else could have, right? So that's where who can be empowered to do that. So like the Me Too movement, all of those women that came out and spoke out didn't have any power within a particular situation. Not all of them were harassed by Harvey Weinstein, although most of them, right? But they were able to speak out on behalf of others, right? And so we had spokespeople and people willing to put their name out there and their reputation out there. When are men willing to do that? So, and I would say you guys are. So let's say Brock Turner happened tomorrow. Didn't already happen, it happened tomorrow. You guys would do a podcast about it. At least I hope you would. At least I hope you would come out and condemn that.
Sweet.
And are you guys staying educated enough to know when those things are happening to use this platform to say, hey, we're going to hold men in this society accountable for the things that aren't okay that they're doing?
Well,
do you hold them accountable when you see it happen?
I don't know the statistics on this, but I'm willing to guess that there's probably a rape occurring every day. And I just don't
more than
have...
that.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't have the manpower to make that many podcasts, but I condemn all of them.
And I understand that. I think it's everyone doing their small part. But like when you see behavior happening, right? And I respect you two, and I think I know you two well enough that if you saw something occurring that was unacceptable, I would certainly hope, and in my fantasy, you guys do say something to your fellow man if you're seeing some type of perpetration, even if it's just abuse relative to a mistreatment of how a woman's being treated, not even physically, right? Are other men willing to step up and do that? And how do you encourage other men to do that?
I am. Yeah. And it's also getting young men to also be part of the solution.
Yes. How do we engage
young men
in conversation? Men. Yes. Yeah. Yes. How are we raising our boys? How are young boys being raised? How are young women being raised? It matters.
People just can't have the uncomfortable conversation. Son, what you see on the internet, it's just what people fantasize about. You're probably going to meet some women that do appreciate some pretty kinky shit. But just get the okay first. That's all. She's gonna.
When it all comes down to it.
She's gonna let you do a lot kinkier shit if you just get the okay. I promise. You don't have to take it. Just fucking get the okay, and she's gonna respect you more, be willing to put out more, and you're gonna fucking reap the benefits greatly. So Saif, to answer your question, this is why you buy the first meal.
Or Scandinavian countries had it all right, and they let their kids start touching each other and being sexual at a really young age so that they can explore each other's bodies and respect themselves, and they have less sexual assault in their societies, less teen pregnancies, less depression, less suicides among their kids, all because they didn't repress sexual energy when it's already funneling through our bodies when we're young.
So you're saying that these like sixth graders are just having blow bangs all over the place?
What grade are we talking?
Yeah, because think about all that repression that was built up and all of the social constructs that come around repressing, the natural biology of our hormones, and then you put the social construct over that, and next thing you know, you expect us to all operate well together? Get out. Or we could just get that all out of the way, let each other explore ourselves and each other as younger people when those hormones are raging, do it in a safe way, and next thing you know, we can build respect for each other versus the repression that's built up, and then you guys are fucking raging machines that want to just fuck anything that walks, and you're going to be aggressive about it behind a dumpster because you can. Shit. And I'm going to go get blasted drunk at a party so that I black out when it happens because I'm repressed too.
Mr. Rogers, we need you now more than ever.
My favorite episode was when he taught us how to make guitars.
Well, I think this is a pretty good place to end things for the evening. This is a conversation that...
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we could just have a podcast dedicated to this on a weekly basis, covering all sorts of fucking issues. So... There's clearly plenty that we missed, and this conversation hopefully will continue online. So if you would like to interact with us, leave any feedback, you may do so at CTS Cherry on Twitter or by searching for the Catch the Sky Facebook page or find us on Instagram. Saif, what else would you like to hit on before we wrap up this conversation?
I think in keeping with the spirit of this conversation, I think it's important to plug our small business of the week is Phoenix Central Therapy. A therapeutic massage. If you're dealing with injuries, accidents, you need professional work done, Phoenix Central Therapy. They got you. Very reasonable. Very reasonable cost.
Are they paying us?
No. But we definitely got to help small businesses. They're getting killed out there. Last time I checked.
All right.
Last time I checked,
I'm all for it.
Kicked.
We're all for it.
They're getting assaulted. Small businesses are getting assaulted. You want to talk about assault?
But
All right.
One every day.
These guys are getting.
I mean, we're not selling anything, but we're small. People could throw us a bone every now and then too. So if you find us on the interwebs,
Big Joe Rogan.
right? If you like what we're doing, feel free to share us. Again, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for the Catch the Sky podcast. On Twitter at CTS Terry. Dick, what else would you like to include or insert into this conversation?
No, I just want to thank you guys for doing your part as struggling men in the patriarchy. I want to acknowledge that it can't be fucking easy to be men either. So you're fighting the good fight, guys.
It's really nice to be able to stand up and pee, honestly. That's the biggest perk. Outside of that, I want everything 50-50. I want you guys to stand up and pee. You know, I want us to figure that out together.
They have devices for that.
They do.
They're like these little funnel things.
I love them. What are they called?
They're only $10 too.
Yeah, they look super convenient. It looks, honestly, I looked at it and I'm like, that looks like the thing I used to put oil in my car.
Shiwi. It's a shiwi.
Yes.
My sister had one at a festival.
Yes, there it is.
Made porta potties tolerable.
I mean, they all have really terrible names because that's how, things are named for females. So like the
Shiwi's got some stuff.
I like Shiwi. What was the other one?
Go Girl.
The Go Girl.
Yeah, that one's a good one too.
Right? That's terrible.
What was your business idea?
Well,
Rent your ovaries? What?
we have a whole line that T and I are starting on the side.
Yeah.
That goes along with your bun, my oven.
Yeah, she's going to invent all sorts of stuff to put up other women's vaginas too.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just jealous of the Go Girl.
She's going to commandeer.
What if that's a concept?
What? What's a concept?
You know how they'll name a star?
Sure.
They'll name a star in the universe.
Uh-huh.
Maybe you can legally name my vagina, right? Or my penis. Could that be a thing?
I want to say yes, but then my first question is who would want to? Like, who would want to name?
I was evaluating that business model, and it wasn't working out.
Yeah, like, who would want to name your dick, Saif? Nobody wants to.
People want to name stars. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because stars are cool and last for billions of years.
Maybe I want to name a rock, okay? Maybe I get to name the rocks around here.
I wonder if you could, maybe you could start doing more.
And change the...
Oh, you could do an
Change the
adopt a
races'
tree
names
service
and rename.
of some sort. I'm sure this already
Yes.
exists.
Yes.
But you could just
Not on a commercial
adopt,
scale.
ugly trees.
A financially viable company.
That could be a thing. Oh my God, Saif. All right, so here's how you do it. People can adopt trees in your local community. You can adopt a tree, and then they put some sort of plaque or ribbon or some natural thing that isn't going to harm the tree and could maybe even grow into the tree over time that indicates that it is your tree and has been adopted by you. What do you think of that?
I already have 3 trees in mind.
No, fuck your tree in your backyard. I'm talking about like a tree that's like in a park or like on the sidewalk. It's not your tree, like in your backyard.
How dare you talk about my trees like that?
Well, you fucking...
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Because
How dare you, sir?
kill your trees. Basically, one dies every time I come out there. I was not complicit. No. B, I'm tending to your trees more than you're tending to your trees. I'm out here fucking...
It's actually our anniversary.
2 a.m.
I don't know if you know this.
Cutting off branches, making sure that thing is trimmed the way it needs to be, and then you're not even watering it. It's the biggest tree in your backyard, and it's dying.
I've killed it off. It actually, this summer was so hot.
Jesus
it died. Yeah. R.I.P. African sumac. We got to talk more about death. It's a serious issue.
Yeah, that's a whole different...
You are die.
Wow. Yeah, what happens? Is there... What happens after death? Is there anything? Probably not, in my opinion, but... The grieving
Dick, you
process...
down to talk some aliens?
What did you say?
Are you down to talk some aliens?
Yeah, I don't have time to talk aliens tonight, but I'll talk aliens with you guys.
Oh, we're definitely going to be talking about aliens again.
It got the most fan engagement so far.
I pulled my telescope out this week because there was the Geminids meteor shower, and then the Great Conjunction is happening right now. So I'm looking for aliens on the rings of Saturn right now.
Well, according to our best data, they've got a base on the back of the moon, so you could probably just look a lot closer.
Okay,
No, I'm just... That is obviously fake, conspiracy, crazy nonsense.
Doesn't
news.
matter. I'm going for it. It's easier to find the moon in my telescope, actually. Trying to find Venus and Saturn next to each other right now. I'm struggling. I just keep
Isn't
finding
it Jupiter
hikers.
and Saturn?
Is that what it is? I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not an astronomer. Jesus. It's a fucking National Geographic telescope that I got in an auction, okay?
I used to have a telescope. I don't know what happened to it. Yeah, we'll get into that another time, sometime in the future, and we'll be sure to invite you back.
I dig it.
So we were talking tonight, and before this conversation even began, I wanted to reach out to people who I love and trusted and gave me a different perspective, mostly women in my life. And I asked for examples of the patriarchy. And as we were finishing up our conversation tonight, I received this text message from someone I love dearly, and their examples that they shared with me would be oppressing women's rights to education, work, freedom of choice, choosing what to wear, whether to have children or not, choosing abortion, wanting to live alone, sexual, physical harassment and abuse of women, supremacy that maintains and defends a system of wealth, power, and privilege over people of color, homophobia and toxic masculinity, believing that men should never cry or be vulnerable in front of anyone, creating a vicious cycle of shame and possibly addiction. So that was interesting. But I thought that summary, yeah.
That sounds like a summary of our show tonight.
Yeah, I think it does summarize our show. I think we talked about all those things.
Yeah.
That is the summary of patriarchy.
That's insane that you got this while we were talking about it and not previously, because that sounds like an outline of our show tonight. So
we came in at 9:12 p.m.
your time.
And my time, and it's 9:27 p.m.
That's wild. That is wild.
I don't do.
At least we know that we're on the right track, right? We know that we're not dumbasses just out here spewing nonsense.
I think we are stupid men to a degree. I think there's some buffoonery going on. At least I'll speak for myself. I feel like I have a lot to learn.
Oh, definitely.
I feel my intentions are pure.
But we're on the right track.
Yeah, I feel our intentions are pure. I think we still want to joke. I still want to say dame and toots, and I want to still do my bad New York impressions. But that's a glamorized character, kind of the honeymooner.
Yeah.
The Ralph, I'm going to send you to the moon, Alice. This is their glorified Archie Bunkers. This is how men should act. And I learned from John Wayne. Like, and now I'm reprogramming, reconditioning myself. Trying not to be a tough guy all the fucking time. Some guy yelled at me tonight in the park. I was just walking the dog. He just started screaming at me like, what are you looking at, motherfucker? What are you looking at? And there's a part of me that's like, you know, you don't want a piece of Debo.
Right.
That's in there. And, you know, it's that aggression. It's that toxic masculinity. Sometimes you're out there, you got to be a wolf. And I imagine if you're in, you know, Dick was talking about being encountered by a couple of wolves, you know, and how intimidating that must be.
Especially if you're a woman, because then what are you going to do?
Right.
So I'm looking forward to whatever we get into next. I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week. So that's going to be a surprise for our listeners. We'll give you a little teaser during the week next week. But until then, please feel free to like and share or subscribe on any podcast platform. And keep trying to catch the sky. All right, stop.